It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
Damn, who knew? All the planes we flew, good things we've been through. That I'll be standing right here talking to you about another path. I know we love to hit the road and laugh, but something told me that it wouldn't last. Had to switch up, look at things different, see the bigger picture. Those were the days, hard work forever pays. Now I see you in a better place. How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you gon' be with me for the last ride.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way, from where we began.
You know we started.
Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
Tell you.
When I see.
I imagine that song is going to take, for fans of this franchise, the place that Leave the Memories Alone does for wrestling fans, as far as just kind of borderline sappy but deeply emotional songs that you hear and just can't help but burst into tears. Not me, though, because I'm clearly a heartless bastard. Hi, everyone. I'm Robert Winfree. Thank you all for listening to the Radulich and Broadcasting Network blockbuster review of Furious 7, the movie that, over the course of, 4 days, made nearly $300 million worldwide, and you wonder why they're already making a sequel. Oy. Sorry. Minor cynicism aside. Again, thanks for being here. My co-host, my co-partner in crime, the man who hates pants almost as much as I do, is here with me as well. Everybody, Mark Radulich is still alive, still kicking, and still has thoughts on movies. Who'd have thought? How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well. I have to tell you, the day that I never thought I would go see a Fast and Furious movie. You know, as I've told many people, I have to thank your stint on the long road to ruin during the Jonas Exodus for even mildly piquing my curiosity about it. And I have to say, having only seen 5, 6, and now 7, I'm a fan of the second half of the franchise. I can't imagine I'll ever sit down and watch the first 2 or 3, but I may someday watch the fourth one. Like when they decided to turn.
You should watch the first 3 just so you can say you did.
Okay, maybe if someday one of my kids turns out to be into cars and wants to watch these movies, or they're into filmmaking and I want to sit down and show them what not to do, I will give the first 3 a chance. But I'm all for, as we've learned through the Michael Bay Transformer movies and such, I'm all for big sloppy action movies. The more stuff exploding on screen, the more silliness, the better. And I'll tell you this: these Fast and Furious latter day movies are chock full of silly. So I was happy to go see it, and I'm happier to review it with you.
You're not kidding when it comes to the silly in a lot of ways. I have a few issues, and look, I can't have too many issues with movies where one of the basic premises for them is the laws of physics do not apply as you know them. I mean, it's a given going in. There may as well be a disclaimer, and I can't get mad at them for ignoring the laws of physics when we all know they're going to ignore the laws of physics. So that's not an objective criticism. All right, I'll go ahead and give a brief kind of plot synopsis here, and then we can go into some of the specifics that Mark and I liked, didn't like, what have you. This movie picks up where the last one left off, which is coincidentally where Tokyo Drift left off, and Lucas Black was on screen, and it made me want to vomit, but that's a different story. If you're not familiar with my complaints about Lucas Black and his character, find the Long Road to Ruin 2-parter that discusses the Fast and the Furious franchise, and at the end of part 1, when Sean Comer and I talk about Tokyo Drift, you'll get an earful, from both him and me, but suffice it to say, I was not pleased. But we were introduced first off to the villain for this movie, which is the great Jason Statham, Jason Statham's awesome. I'm a big fan of his. He plays the older brother of Luke Evans, who was the villain in the 6th movie, and is now apparently a vegetable. He takes umbrage with the fact that Vin Diesel, The Rock, Paul Walker, and their crew of misfits turned his brother into a vegetable and is now seeking revenge. Like you do. I gotta be honest, I would. And I loved, in brief introduction preview to my thoughts on some of this, I loved the introduction of Jason Statham's character. It was great. We get a brief flashback again to him being the one who actually killed Han Solo. Yes, I will continue to say that, and it will continue to be at least moderately amusing to myself. He planted a bomb at the Toretto residence, which goes off, takes out the house, nearly kills Dom and Brian and Mia. They all survive, including the young son. They are approached by then Jason Statham takes out The Rock, which should let you know right away that he's serious, because Hobbs, the character, is supposed to be kind of indestructible within the realm of that franchise, and he gets taken out for most of the movie. They're then approached by Kurt Russell, who has the MacGuffin that they can get to track him. They go globetrotting. They obtain said MacGuffin. There's a final showdown between them all, and Jason Statham winds up in jail at a black site facility with machine guns perpetually trained on him, and everyone else kind of rides off into the sunset, metaphorically. And the very end actually deals with the exit of Paul Walker and his character, Brian O'Connor, and I want to touch on that at the very end because I personally think that little epilogue actually belongs in a completely different movie. Narratively and tonally speaking, this film ends with Jason Statham being locked up, and then we get the epilogue, the goodbye to Paul Walker tacked on at the end, which is not an insult, mind you. I just consider them separately. And along the way, there's, again, obtaining the MacGuffin takes place in Azerbaijan and Abu Dhabi and all the other stuff. And again, just a big, like Mark said, a really kind of big action movie with plot pieces that exist purely to set up cars flying through the air, rolling down cliffs, taking out helicopters, so on and so forth. Again, this is the 7th movie in this franchise. You know what you're getting into at this point. So let's go, Mark. If you had, your things that you really liked about this movie, what was it about it that really, because you liked it. I mean, you also liked many of Michael Bay's films, and I don't hold that against you. But what about this movie did you really enjoy?
There's a creative aspect that I really like to it, in that the premise is this is an action movie starring cars and what we can make those cars do. And without having seen 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm still impressed at the creativity of the writers and the stunt people in what they can make the cars do that looks fascinating, that looks fantastic on screen. I loved the Azerbaijan set piece, starting with the cars falling out of the plane and parachuting, target parachuting, mind you, parachuting onto the cliff, and then trying to overtake the bus and the truck and all that, and the various ways they were doing battle with the cars. And then, move over to Abu Dhabi, and the one set piece there, starring a car, is they drive the car from one building to the other to the next, while crashing it through floors. And then thirdly, I like the wrap up. Let's take the war back home. If a war is coming to us, then let's go to the streets we know. And they proceed to play hot potato in the streets of L.A. And it was
I've got a gripe with that one.
it was visually stimulating. I mean, I have to say that there's some very pretty shots here. And look, let me be clear about something. I am very forgiving with this movie. Not forgiving to my cat, but I'm very forgiving to this movie in that I don't expect the acting to be great. I don't expect the story to be great. I expect the acting to not take me out of the film, which none of it really does. I expect the story to be at least consistent and make sense, which it does to a degree. But really, what are we there for? It's a stripper. That's what we're here for. This movie is a strip club featuring naked girls. That's all this movie is. And as long as the girls and the cars are the girls, the action is the girls. As long as they don't have pregnant stretch marks and bullet holes, and they don't tell you that they're shooting heroin and that every man that's ever been in their family has molested them, great. I'm okay with the fantasy. I'm okay with the big tits and how great it all just looks. And when it's all over, my pants are wet and I go home. I mean, and that's what the Furious 7 is. It's a trip to the strip club. And I feel this was a very successful trip.
Okay. I wanted to bring up specifically Jason Statham because this is a franchise that has everybody that knows me, listens to my podcast and whatnot. I place great stock in a hero only being as good as his opposition, and there have been some pretty weak opposing forces to whatever you call the crew is that are protagonists here with all of their cars. And I thought we finally got a decent one with Luke Evans in it and as Owen Shaw in the last one. And Jason Statham, I like Luke Evans, but again, let's be real, Jason Statham is pretty much just a straight upgrade. So I'm curious for you. You mentioned to me off air that you were a fan of him constantly showing up and being a thorn in the sides of whatever they were trying, whatever Vin Diesel is trying to accomplish here. How was he as, the big bad guy for this movie for you? Did you, was he simply adequate, or was he just, more than you expected when they announced that Jason Statham was going to be the villain?
Jason Statham presents an adequate level of menace to any part where he plays the villain. I actually prefer him in the role of villain than I do like he was the running buddy of Sylvester Stallone in the Expendables movies. I think it suits him better. He comes across as very unlikable, and you certainly root for Dom Toretto to hit him in the head with a wrench. I thought he was an appropriate foil for somebody who is portrayed as the Samoan Thor in The Rock. I thought he was an appropriate foil for somebody who is an action star in his own right, based purely on aesthetics. Vin Diesel is a muscle, is a bald-headed muscle guy. The Rock is a former pro wrestler. And so what do you have two choices. You can either find someone just as muscly, or you find somebody who is a ninja. And Jason Statham, for the purposes of this discussion, is a ninja. But he's got this whole background, but the Jason Statham, the actor, has this whole litany of movies behind him that people love, where people saw him kick a lot of ass. So I think, when you start talking about these movies, you almost want to put them together like you would put together a fight card, and you need to find somebody who's going to put asses in seats that's going to that's going to be an adequate, an appropriate foil for your good guys, for your stars, and he fits that role perfectly. And I thought he did a great job of being an unlikable, unstoppable SOB without going overboard. At no time did I think he was inhuman and infallible. I think the way that they wrote him was, here's a guy who is a trained killer with no soul, and he's out for revenge, and he does a pretty good job of putting the hurt on these folks. But when they get him in the end, I'm like, why couldn't you have done this in the beginning? I never once thought that, and that's a problem I have with a lot of movies, where it's like, you seem to be relatively incompetent until the end of the movie, when you finally get the bad guy. And in this one, he was gettable, but not so much that they should have gotten him right away. I was okay with how they did it in the end. So I was not okay with the fact that they buried him underneath a building and he seemed to still be alive without a scratch on him. That'd be my only complaint. I don't quite understand how he managed to escape falling through the parking lot with tons of rubble on top of him, and then he's not only alive but not crippled.
Yeah, the not crippled. I was okay with him living just because most of the building didn't actually fall on him. The sequences at the end, Jimon Hansu is in this movie for no other purpose other than to say fire really aggressively over and over and over and over again. And they blow up part of the building that features Vin Diesel and Jason Statham fighting. Jason Statham is the one who falls and gets kind of trapped under the rubble. The whole building doesn't collapse, just part of it does. I was okay with him living. I felt he should have been, in a cast at the very least, legs broken, something to that effect. But he is still alive, and he will likely be in 8. I mean, they go so far as to flat out tell you that. He says, this won't contain me. So, again, he's going to be back. I'm okay with that just because, and this is one of the things that I really liked about it, thinking back on it, Vin Diesel didn't actually beat him in that fight. I mean, you had a physical confrontation, they both got their shots in, and then Jimon Hansu blew up the playing field. There was no actual winner decided as far as the physical contest was concerned, which leaves the area open for, again, the return bout, which I'm perfectly okay with. Now, briefly to your other point about how you can possibly craft villains, so what I'm hearing from you is you want Jason Statham to hire Brock Lesnar for Furious 8.
Well, I'll tell you what, if we're already on to, never mind the Furious 7, what are they going to do? I want the Legion of Doom in this next movie. Jason Statham has to...
So you want to dig up the corpse of Hawk?
I want his brother to regain consciousness and the ability to walk. I want them to hire Brock Lesnar. I want Dom Toretto's team versus the Jason Statham Evil All-Stars. That's what I want to see in this next movie.
All right. And you never know. They might actually do it. I'm curious now because I have a few things that I need to get off my chest as far as complaints go. I'm curious for you. Was there anything... Okay, go for it.
And to a degree, I'm stealing from American Dad. But I don't know if you watch the show at all. If you do you remember the episode where, for those of you that don't watch the show, American Dad is a father, mother, older sister, younger son, and the younger son is a nerd. So that's the setup. And the son's name is Steve. Steve and his friends find the lost script to whatever one they were up to at the time, the Fast and the Furious. It was Fast and the Furious sequels, and there's, let's say at that point 5 had come out, then it was Fast and the Furious 6, and it's like 500 pages, and they're reading it and like, my God, this is the greatest thing ever, and they start getting into it a little bit further, and it takes a turn to hardcore gay pornography, and so they're talking to a producer, and the producer's like, yeah, all the Fast and Furious movies are done this way. It's it's everything that you've seen in the American movies, plus another 120 minutes or so of hardcore gay sex. And then it's like, we shoot all the gay sex, and then we edit it down for American audiences, except for France. France gets it all. I always found that to be funny, but I found that to be funny just the way they delivered those lines. I never really thought about how funny that joke is until I saw, especially the way this Furious 7 ends, and the look Paul Walker is giving Vin Diesel, And I noticed it in the other two movies, but this one was almost like weirdly over the top with it. Paul Walker's character, madly in love with Dom Toretto. I would tell you that he married Mia and had a kid with her because to be closer to Dom. I swear to God, there is such an undercurrent of homosexual love between those two. It jumped out of the fucking movie. And I know people are like, oh, boo, stop making fun of it. I'm not kidding. Okay? The way they wrote this character and the way that it's acted, the way that it's performed, I would tell you there is somewhere in the back of that character's mind is I'm in love with Dom Toretto and I wish I could be with him.
You know, much as that, amuses me, I understand your point about how much that might be there, and I see how you got there. And again, I can only disagree in as far as that's not what I saw, but I can't completely dismiss the notion that it's in there somewhere. I really can't.
I mean, I get, like, the character Dom is, but by the same token, and I said this to my friends, I was like, I haven't watched these other movies. Does Dom Toretto hate himself and, like, have a death wish? Because in every single one of these movies that I've seen, Dom Toretto is saying no one can sacrifice themselves but me. I must take all the bullets. I must take all the pain. I must put myself in all of the danger. Because you're all family and I must protect you. And he seems to have no regard for himself. And even in this movie, he's doing things like crashing head on into Jason Statham. And and while on the one hand these movies are written in such a way that everyone is fucking indestructible, including the cars. Yeah. Realistically, I mean, you have to. I can't help but see the undercurrent of psyche in the performances and in the characters of these movies. And even if they're not meant to be there, they were apparent to me. And what became apparent to me is Paul Walker's character in love with Dom Toretto and cannot rid himself of those feelings. And Dom Toretto hates himself and is looking for a hero's way out. That he would much rather die protecting his quote unquote family than live with these feelings. And just to sort of finalize this last point, he showed in the last movie and in this one that his one true love is Michelle Rodriguez. And I actually liked their dynamic together. I enjoyed, a little confused by some of what happened in this movie, and we can talk about that in a minute. But that's sort of the triangle that I see. He loves her, hates himself, and Paul Walker loves Dom Toretto.
All right, what was it that confused you? Having actually seen all the movies, I might be able to help you out there.
Well, okay, I understand Letty allegedly died, and what is revealed is, and I guess it's the sixth one, that she has amnesia, and that's how she ends up working for Luke Evans' crew. She doesn't remember any of who she is. And by the end of 6, she's back together with Toretto, and Elena has gone on to work for The Rock. So, okay, I get that. Now, this movie opens up, and they're still doing the thing where Dom Toretto says, hey, remember when this happened? And she goes, no, I don't remember when this happened. Quite frankly, I'm tired of you asking me. So she says, I can't be with you anymore because I can't return the look that you're giving me. I can't love you the way that you love me because you love me as a person you've known forever, and I only love you because I've known you, in a way that I've only known you for an hour. Okay, that made sense to me. Then at the end of the movie, where Dom Toretto appears to be dead, she says, I remember everything. When we got, it all came back to me when we got married. Did I fucking miss something? Did they get married after she left him? Because
no,
that's
she's
not what she said at the beginning of the movie.
This is moderately monkeyed with chronology. She is theoretically killed in the beginning of the 4th movie. At which point, Dom and a couple of other people, the fast-talking Puerto Rican brothers, or Dominican brothers, rather, from 5 are with them, and they're robbing gas to give to the little people, the whole Robin Hood thing. But they're living in the Dominican Republic there, and that her memory flashback would then be that they got married then prior to his leaving, which he does, and then she winds up leaving and trying to get him exonerated, and that's when she is blown up and amnesia and everything. But she's actually remembering an event that took place ostensibly between what amounts to 2 and 4 in terms of chronology.
I still don't understand.
That might have not helped at all.
I don't understand her saying to him, I don't have the memories you want me to have at the beginning of this movie, and then at the end when he's dying say, yes, I do.
Well, logic would dictate that she got the memories back during the movie.
That's not what she says.
Well, again, it probably could have been written better, but
I mean, you don't have to defend it or even try to explain it to me. I'm telling you this is what happened. At the beginning of the movie, she says, I can't love you the way that you're loving me because I just don't have the memory. It's gone, and I'm a different person. And then at the end of the movie, she's holding him. She's like, Dom, I remember everything now. And and then if she had left it at that, I would have been okay. You know, it came back to her over the course of the movie. Fine. If she had said, I remember, it all came back to me when you touched me in the elevator, I'm okay with that. That's fine. I'm not okay with it happened, my memories came back to me before the conversation we had at the beginning of this movie. Unless she jumped in a DeLorean.
My impression was her memories really started coming back when she saw that weird cross that he has. Because that was when we got another bizarre sequence. Again, my interpretation.
About this, that's not the dialogue in the movie.
Well, these movies are not written well in terms of dialogue. I mean, none of them are.
Okay. For the sake of the audience, let's move on. But those are my only points. Is the interpersonal relationships, those were what jumped out at me, and her suddenly remembering things out of order didn't make any sense. And that's my biggest gripe I had with the movie.
I have a minor gripe when it comes to Michelle Rodriguez. If simply being congratulated by a throng of people triggers a PTSD attack, what do you think falling out of a frickin' airplane in a car would do? I mean, this is a person who's slightly emotionally unstable. Now you're being shot at high speeds, and you don't have any problems now? I mean, come on.
She felt right at home.
That really kind of bugged me again. I have a gripe with the final sequence. It looks great, but I refuse to believe that in 2015 you could sneak a helicopter into downtown Los Angeles and not have it blown out of the sky within 3 minutes.
the American military. I have an explanation for that. In terms of rules of warfare, and you have to get commands. And as anyone who's speaking to people in the field of battle these days, it's very, very hard to get your commanders at home to give the order overseas to shoot at a target. So maybe it took that entire sequence for them to get the order to shoot the helicopter, and by then it was over.
Look, I'm just saying, in the paranoid, terrorism-filled world that we live in, you will not get an unlicensed, undocumented aircraft over a major city. It absolutely will not happen.
Maybe they gave the United States an old code, but a code that still works. Worked in Return of the Jedi.
Don't give me that. It doesn't work. And apparently drones are Hollywood's new, it can do magic things.
Okay.
Look, don't get me wrong. Drones can do a lot of things. There are still limits to what a drone is capable of. And, I don't know. Apparently that's their new, we want to do something cool, what's something no one understands, and we can make look awesome. Oh, look, drones. No, they don't work that way.
Work smart.
Again. Again, minor complaint there. My other pseudo gripe is the running time for this movie. This movie's what, 2 hours long?
I'll get you the exact time. Hang on. Go ahead.
At least 2 hours. It's at least 2 hours, and I can't help but feel they could have shaved it. You could have cut 10 minutes out of this movie.
Well, my friend that I saw it with would have agreed with you. It's actually 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Oh, for the love of... Okay. Further proof that my claim is correct. It felt like there were sequences in this movie that existed just to remind me what I hated so much about the first two. Pretty much everything in Abu Dhabi grated on my nerves because it went back to the tried and true formula of here's a bunch of women wearing bikinis, here's loud hip-hop music blaring over the screen that will slowly fade away, and they will get a few lines of dialogue, then we will repeat this procedure 3 or 4 more times. I hated it then, I hate it now. It serves no purpose other than, hey, look, we can drive a car out of the tallest building in the world into an adjacent tower and then into another tower. I mean, that's all it's there for. It doesn't do anything else.
You're talking that sequence doesn't do anything, or I mean, because in Azerbaijan they need the girl.
Yes.
In Abu Dhabi, the girl needs the
flash drive or whatever.
The flash drive, and then in Los Angeles,
you couldn't have done it in a less stupid. Again, we had to set up this whole thing. You couldn't have cut that whole sequence out with her having stashed it in the safety deposit box in Switzerland.
First of all,
come on.
Much like
you would have saved
cut that scene,
a bunch of time. Don't bring the Transformers argument into this. I maintain.
I'll tell you. I'll give you this. I think you need to keep the sequence because it contains one of the marquee action sequences in the movie. That look, if they were like, okay, we're gonna drop cars from planes and have them race them down a mountain. Then we're gonna drive a car into buildings, and then we're gonna have Keep Away in Los Angeles. If they were putting the script together and like those were the 3 set pieces that they were focused around, you obviously have to keep Abu Dhabi then in the movie. You don't need to make it as long as it was. And I will tell you this, they didn't need Ronda Rousey in this movie. They didn't need Ronda Rousey in that scene. They didn't need that scene, period. I felt like it was a setup to include Ronda Rousey in the movie and to give Michelle Rodriguez something to do.
And thankfully they did not. They had 2 opportunities in this movie to drastically insult my intelligence. And thankfully they did not do so in either case. But look, Michelle Rodriguez could not go in any way, shape, form, or fashion toe-to-toe with Ronda Rousey. At all. Full stop. End of discussion. Paul Walker could not hang with Tony Jaa. And I know there are a lot of people out there who may not be familiar with Tony Jaa's work, but the man is a legitimately talented Muay Thai combatant, has a vertical leap of something like 2 meters. All of his stunts, he does. There's very little wire work. He just is able to physically do those things. He's, and again, anyone who knows the man, who has seen anything he's done, you know what he's physically capable of. And I was terrified they were going to have Paul Walker get the better of him in a fist fight, which would just be, no, that, again, would not happen. Thankfully they didn't. He outsmarted him, which is perfectly fine.
Well, no, see, I have a problem with this now, because they're not fighting Ronda Rousey and Tony Jaa. They're fighting the Sultan or the Sheik.
They're fighting Ronda Rousey and Tony Jaa. Let's not confuse this with a great character
Ronda
or
Rousey
any
was
kind of
fighting
thespian
Tara.
performance.
No.
Don't give me that.
I do not agree. Hands down. Ronda Rousey was playing a character, and that character does not submit people in less than 30 seconds by armbar.
I disagree, and part of it is, look, they weren't there to be actors; they were there to be themselves, and we'll put you in this situation.
Okay, they were there to provide martial arts skill, and they were there to provide gravitas, in an area, in a fight sequence. Oh, look, it's UFC bantamweight champion Ronda Rousey, the girl who kills people in 30 seconds in the cage. Okay, but she's not playing Ronda. Ronda Rousey wasn't the head of security. Cara was. And
would have been so much better if it actually was Ronda, though. And that would have amused me more.
Walking around in an over 9,000 T-shirt. No, I feel like that's an invalid criticism. These people were playing characters.
And maybe it's just me, and again, part of that is I'm familiar with those people as humans as opposed to characters. And there are things that, again, within the physical realm, and even just physically on screen, I don't believe certain interactions. Honestly, I mean, I had the same pseudo gripe with 6, with Luke Evans being able to basically go strength for strength with Vin Diesel. No.
Yeah, well, he is. Well, he is
barred. Is not like the other. No. I see your point, and I can understand why you would disagree with my criticism there. That's my criticism of it, and I'll admit that's not the most objective criticism in the world. But
again, if they have these people playing themselves, I suppose I would agree with you, but they're not. I think a more valid criticism is what I said, is that whole sequence. Look, well, for Ronda, I happen to like Ronda Rousey as a personality. I mean, I think in a lot of ways she's awful, but overall, I want to see her succeed. I want to see her continue to transcend mixed martial arts and become a celebrity in her own right. For that to happen, she needs not to have her parts cut from movies. But if I'm pressed for time and need to cut 20 minutes out of this movie, I'm cutting the entire fight sequence. I'm rewriting what to do with Michelle Rodriguez.
Yeah, I'm completely with you there. That and my other gripe, and I don't know if I'm completely alone in this. I've not yet encountered someone who really agrees with me, but I hate Tyrese.
They've continued to make him, more of a minstrel type character. Like, I didn't think he was as bad in 5, and then 6 he got more whinier and more. Oh, I don't know about this. Oh, no. And then, in 7, he's full on, Master, don't throw me out no plane.
God, there's a scene in the Abu Dhabi sequence where he is supposed to provide the distraction. And as he's doing this, he tries to sing happy birthday to someone. He's there to distract them from Vin Diesel and Paul Walker breaking into the $3 million car. Which is fine, you need a character to provide distraction. I felt like they had him ad-lib it, and by the same token, when Ludacris just shakes his head and goes, man, I wish I hadn't seen that, he was speaking from the heart. Because I watched that scene, sighed, and said, I completely agree with you, Ludacris.
I think it would have been less embarrassing for Tyrese if he had just put on blackface and tap danced. It would have been... It would have been less embarrassing, I think, for black people, or if he had put on blue tights and just started yelling out "New Day" while clapping. New Day!
I keep watching Tyrese's character in these movies, and I keep wanting him to die. And
he's such a dichotomy he's such a dichotomy to Ludacris, who, look, I'm no fan of Ludacris. I think he's a terrible rapper, and I'm not a huge fan of rap to begin with, but I was never into Ludacris. But I happen to like him.
He's turned into a decent actor.
I was going to say, he's very
not
understated.
Great, but he's decent.
I was going to say, he's very understated, and I really enjoyed his performance in this as he's the tech guy, and he's not overly nerdy about it, but he's self-assured of what he's doing. But, he transcends his color. You don't look at, and it's an odd thing to say about a guy who calls himself Ludacris, but Ludacris doesn't jump off the screen yelling, "I'm black, ha ha, black people, yeah," which is what Tyrese is doing. Tyrese is shucking and jiving, showing his pearly white teeth. He's just like, hey, look at me, I'm black. Well, while Ludacris is playing a character, and that character could be any race, and you wouldn't really know the difference. You know what I mean? You understand what I'm saying? Like Tyrese is playing into black stereotypes, I guess, for the enjoyment of the audience. I guess people enjoy when black people make idiots of themselves, but Ludacris actually just
we enjoy when people make idiots of themselves. Let's be fair here. This is not limited to any particular race.
Okay, but he's the only one doing it in these movies. There's not.
He is.
In other words, there's not another white person or an Asian or anybody else on. Gal Gadot in the last movie wasn't shucking and jiving. She wasn't. They don't. It's like they don't have what's her face from Michelle McCarthy. Like who's an asshole of a white woman, right? She's just there to be a retard, and so you put her on the team with Tyrese. Now you've got two people playing the stereotypes, two people playing to the lowest common denominator. Okay, then I'm a little bit more convinced. This is so because people enjoy lowbrow comedy intermixed with their action.
Let me say this as far as a brief counter argument.
When you only have one guy doing it, and it's the black guy, it comes across as a little racist.
I'm not going to completely disagree with you. I will say this. If that were a Jewish guy in that same role, he would be playing stereotypical Jewish guy. He would have the curls and he would say oy vey every third line. If it were a Latino of some variety, he'd start every sentence with either Holmes or essay. I mean, it's simply that character that is going to play up to whatever those stereotypes are. In this case, it just happens to be Tyrese, and he's black.
Yeah, well, he went from what appeared to be a character of some kind into you're a walking stereotype. And that was all he...
No. He went back to a stereotype. Because you haven't seen 2. Okay. He's a stereotype in 2. In 5, he becomes more of a legitimate character, and then, as you said, he's now back to not.
He's come home again. So one thing I thought was interesting, and we're running up against an hour here, so I'll start to wind down. But so Gal Gadot allegedly dies in the 6th one. She falls off an airplane. You never see her again. But nobody cares about her. She doesn't get the big send off. She doesn't get a funeral. Whose funeral do they go to first? Han.
Han is the one they go to in this one.
So they go to Han's funeral, and that's very sad, and that he's killed by Jason Statham and all that. Gal Gadot falls off a plane in the other movie, and no one seems to give a shit. But I digress.
Han did, because that's why he was really broken up about it, theoretically.
Nobody else cared.
I'm aware of that.
So anyway, so she's in the credits. So Gal Gadot is in the credits of this movie, like a starring credit. Like she was in the opening credits, I think. And I was sitting there wondering, I'm like, I wonder where are they going to reintroduce her in this movie? Like, did she somehow live?
No, it's just a picture of her.
Yeah, and then I realized later on she got a starring credit in this thing just by being Gal Gadot, but all they did was use previous footage of her, and not like Mickey Burgess Meredith in Rocky Balboa. They literally just used old footage.
You're thinking of Rocky 5, not Rocky Balboa, but point remains. No, they.
No,
I imagine it's in her. What?
No, it's Rocky Balboa too. Rocky Balboa, he has flashbacks to Burgess Meredith.
All right, I'll take your word for it. I'm relatively sure you're referencing the scene in Rocky V when he gives the famous, "Get up, you son of a bitch, 'cause Mickey loves you" speech.
Maybe.
Which is in Rocky V, not Rocky Balboa.
I know Rocky V is when he gives him the cufflink that he got from Rocky Marciano.
Yeah.
But I could have sworn there was new Burgess Meredith stuff, and I'll forget it. Anyway, you know what I mean.
I would be shocked, seeing as he'd been dead for quite some time.
Well, CGI, holograms. Listen, my point is, I don't understand.
Speaking of CGI and holograms, that's as good a segue as we're going to get into talking about Paul Walker here.
All right, go ahead.
Well, look, it's kind of the giant elephant in the room here, and it keeps getting bigger. That goes for the movie as well in a lot of ways. They have to write his character out in addition to, look, what happened to him sucks.
Hang on.
Nothing
before we end this show, I have, and some of this I'm stealing from movie fights, but you have to come back to me on what they need to do for Furious 8 regarding his character.
Okay. So one of the undercurrents for this movie is he has become, Brian O'Connor, again, Paul Walker's character, has become a tad domesticated. He's driving a minivan. He's taking his kid to school. He's doing the normal suburban things. I imagine these are things you do, Mark. I also imagine you know where the button is to release the automatic door on the minivan.
Yep. I actually do drive a minivan.
And there's the undercurrent of he's not fulfilled by this anymore, to the point where he actually wonders aloud, that you'll get someone, the teacher who picks up his son tells him, don't worry, you'll get used to it, regarding, finding his way around a minivan. And he looks a little bit sad and goes, that's what I'm afraid of. And, which is another minor gripe I have with elements of this movie. And some of James Wan's James Wan, the director, has done 2 or 3 of my favorite horror movies ever. He did the original Saw, he did Insidious, and he did The Conjuring. And those are all wonderful movies. I don't know why when he does non-horror movies, a lot of the subtlety goes out of what he does. Because Paul Walker just looking sad at the notion of becoming accustomed to finding his way around a minivan is enough. We don't need him to actually verbalize, yes, I'm terrified of becoming normal. And if you see, I've seen some other stuff that James Wan has done outside of horror, and I have that same gripe about other things in a few other movies that I'm not going to get into because they're off topic. And again, they're setting up his exit, and there's a few scenes where Vin Diesel explains to him that, there's nothing wrong with, just being a good husband and a good father, and you should you should do that. The rest of this doesn't actually matter. And then at the end of the movie, and I mentioned this at the top of this show, you get at the very end, the final, 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, I didn't clock it, is not actually anything to do with the rest of the movie. It's just everyone saying goodbye to Paul Walker. And I'm okay with this. It's a very well done bit. It's very heartfelt, very touching. You get, all the kind of classic ham-handed lines about things are going to be different and it's not really goodbye and so on and so forth. And again, I'm not going to sit here and bash it because it's just a tribute to the man. And I might be a bit cynical and a tad heartless from time to time, but I'm not that heartless. And my complaint was, even when I was watching it, was just, this feels like it does not really belong with the rest of the movie type of thing. And I stand by that in a lot of ways, but in terms of, a 10-minute video tribute to Paul Walker, it's great. You get flashbacks of his scenes throughout the entire franchise. You get Vin Diesel with some voiceover narration, and you get a really nice finishing sequence when he and Vin drive along a road. Paul Walker turns off, and we fade up into the sun. And there's the big whiteout with the words for Paul over it. I mean, again, what do you expect? You know, it's there, it's touching, it's, you know, sadness as it's supposed to be. I'm just curious.
I like the way it ended.
You heard my 2 cents there.
I like the way that it ended. I like the symbolism of them going in 2 different directions. Because even if he doesn't die, you know, the whole point that they're trying to drive home is that you can't go with Dom anymore. Dom has to have his own life, and it may not be the safest thing for you, but you have a family. You have now 2 kids and a wife, and that is the road you must take. So I like that. You know, or the more literal translation. One of you is dead, the other one is alive, and you are now in 2 different places, you know, in the universe. Okay. Either way it works. I was a little the whole way they handled Paul Walker in this movie, though, I thought was a bit odd, considering you do have a dead man you're dealing with here. And I don't understand why they didn't take this opportunity to write him out of the movie right then and there. You know, why they didn't have him sacrificing himself against, you know, Dom's wishes, you know, and dying, you know, in order to save the crew or to save Dom or whatever. And then, you know, obviously that would explain why he's not in the next movie. Now maybe, you know, they shot what they had shot and he was dead and there was no way they were going to physically be able to do that. But still, you know, you're kind of left with a kind of happy ending. It's once again, it's him and the family playing on the beach together, and Dom just kind of going off on his own way. And that does leave, you know, if you're ending the series, that's one thing. But if you're coming back to do an 8th, why isn't Paul Walker with them? You have to do something with this character. And I think that the way to do it, somebody asked, like, what character should they bring back to the Fast and it was in Movie Fights. Screen Junkies Movie Fights, which is every Sunday. They upload a new one. It's one of my favorite podcasts right now. And you know, I look forward to each week. And they had fans of the show come on and do a movie fight. And one of the questions that was asked is, who would they add to the Fast and the Furious? And somebody mentioned Burt Reynolds, you know, of Smokey and the Bandit fame. And I thought that was a great idea. They need Burt Reynolds as, like, Dom and Mia's uncle or dad or some, or, you know, just some elder of the family. And Mia and the kids are living with him after Paul Walker has died. Paul Walker's character. They're like, and he died in some sort of, like, you know, ironically, he died in a car accident. Something along those lines. That's what I would do. I would start this movie as they're with Burt Reynolds, and they're living with him because they no longer have the father. That's how I would start Furious 8.
I can see the merit in that. I mean, we all know what they're actually going to do, which is Mia and the kids and Brian are just never going to be referenced on screen again. Which is going to be...
They will cease to exist as characters.
Pretty much, yeah. And it's going to be awkward because, again, there's not necessarily narrative closure there, but that's the route they're going to take by and large.
Mm-hmm.
Alternatively, you have Jason Statham break out of prison and kill Brian O'Connor off screen, which incites the events of 8.
That's certainly one way to do it. Just take out the whole family.
When they announced Jason Statham as part of this movie, and I have people who can verify this,
mm-hmm.
I said if you want to make him believable as a villain, he has to kill someone in the beginning of the movie he's in, and my suggestion was actually Paul Walker. I felt the character of Brian O'Connor had become extraordinarily secondary and therefore, you know, potential collateral damage in the wake of what had happened.
If they can use B-roll footage of Paul Walker, like in the house, you know, just the shots of him like picking up a paper or something, whatever like landed on the cutting room floor that they didn't need, re-edit it together and then pan out and then blow the screen up.
I mean, again, we all know they're not going to do anything. They're going to let the final 5 minutes of this one stand as their kind of lasting tribute and memory to the character and the man, and that's fine as well. Again, that was just, and again, since I thought it felt completely separate in a lot of ways from the rest of the movie, I felt it should be discussed kind of separately from the rest of the movie.
The other way they could do it is actually start it up at his funeral. You know, like the movie opens with narration by Jason Statham and the whole crew at Paul Walker's funeral, and him saying, "I told you this would never hold me."
Something like, yeah, and again, you know, I would be fine with that too. All right, that is okay. So the last thing I want to do, real briefly here, we're down to our last 4 minutes. So we've touched on a few things for the potential sequel in Furious 8. Where do you think they take it? I mean, again, I'm operating under the assumption that we're correct and that they're just never going to mention any of those, you know, characters again, which is odd for a man so obsessed with family to never see his sister or his nephews. But moving on.
We said it before. You've got to go bigger now. I think you have to almost mesh the Expendables with this franchise. And Jason Statham now needs to get a team of his own to take down Dom Toretto, Luke Hobbs, and the rest of the gang, whoever's left at this point. And add more star power to this. They've already done Ronda Rousey, so it's almost a shame they've wasted her in that role. But Gina Carano's gone now, so she can't use her. But maybe there's somebody else out there that they can get. Get another wrestler. Get some folks into the franchise that look like a badass group of mercs, and have them go after Dom Toretto and his team. What else? I can't even begin to think what other things I'd like to see them do with cars, other than maybe do it on the moon. But I want to see Dom Toretto
to wreck the Charger again.
I
have to imagine that's a running gag in that franchise, because every time there's a movie with the Charger that Vin Diesel uses in the final sequence, that same Charger has been in every movie that Vin Diesel's been in, as far as this franchise goes. And in every one of them, it has been totaled.
I want to see Dom Toretto jump his Charger from the moon to Los Angeles.
That only takes, a few weeks of travel.
No, this is Fast and Furious universe where physics don't exist. It would only take a little bit longer than doing it between two buildings.
Just a little bit. It wouldn't work that way.
I want to see him, jump a car from the International Space Station. Just to see the look on his face as the car is burning up upon re-entry. Yeah,
because it would never actually make landfall. There's not enough mass to survive the atmosphere.
But he'd live through it. That would be the great thing.
Oh, yes, he would make impact and make a heck of a crater and then get up and deliver a one-liner, which is what you've come to expect from these.
He would jump the car from the moon into Los Angeles, leave a crater, get up and go, "Ooh, I'm seeing stars."
Yeah, something like that.
You are smiling because you know I'm right.
I do. I do. Though I imagine Arnold will get a line like that in Terminator Genesis after jumping out of a helicopter.
That looks awesome, by the way.
Oh, yay for big, stupid fun.
All right, we have 30 seconds of live time left. Let's do this.
Yeah, all right. Thank you all so very much for listening. If you're listening live, we're going to do plugs real briefly. If we get cut off, then you don't necessarily have to come back for the plugs. If you're listening after the fact, you're kind of stuck with them. Sorry. Mark and I will be back on May 3rd, excuse me. Sorry, not 3rd. May 6th. And that will be our review of Avengers Age of Ultron. And I'm hoping it is not as gloriously stupid as this movie is. But,
no.
One can hope. Hey, I've seen the crap that Joss Whedon can produce from time to time. I'm good track record recently, but I have seen the other side of that particular coin. We'll be back for that. So again, join us for that one.
The week after May 15th, the Wednesday after May 15th, we'll be reviewing Fury Road.
Yeah, the new Mad Max movie starring Tom Hardy, which I'm kind of excited for because I'm a fan of Tom Hardy more than anything.
And then after that is Tomorrowland, and then after that is San Andreas.
All of which I'm okay with. I'm not terribly excited for Tomorrowland, but it's George Clooney. I've learned to appropriately level my enthusiasm.
I'm excited for it. I know Disney is using film to promote interest in their parks, and and they've done a lot to rehabilitate Fantasyland by adding a lot to the park. They've added the Beauty and the Beast restaurant. They've added a lot of stuff from Beauty and the Beast, but they've also gone ahead and started to redo some of their fantasy-laden Golden Age cartoons into live-action movies to generate interest in these characters that populate that particular land. Now they're also starting to shift to Tomorrowland. They've got a cartoon on Disney Junior, Miles from Tomorrowland, which is better than Kate and Min-Min, which is terrible. And then this movie also is one of those synergistic things they're doing to get people thinking and talking about Tomorrowland. Once you have a hit movie on your hand, then you've got something that you can put in the actual Tomorrowland part of the park. So I think it'll end up being good. I think there was a lot of care and time put into this movie, and I think I'd be shocked if it sucks.
I hope it doesn't suck. I hope that with every movie I ever go see. I hope it doesn't suck. That's the bare minimum I request. Again, certain movies I expect more of, honestly, but the bare minimum is don't suck.
All right, tomorrow night on the Metal Hammer of Doom, we're reviewing the new Nightwish, and then a week from tomorrow, part 2 of The Crow, and then Long Road to Ruin is off until the 7th, I think, of May. We'll be looking at the Iron Man trilogy. I think that Monday, which would be the 4th, I might take a break from watching wrestling and go on Starker's show to talk about Demon in a Bottle. It'll be Iron Man week, Iron Man and the Avengers week on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. All
right, be looking forward to all of that as well. Again, feel free to check out the Radulich and Broadcasting Network on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, Stitcher. You can find all of our back issues. The one missing from our movie review club, by and large, is Transformers Age of Extinction, which you can actually find on Mark's YouTube page. Blog Talk was deciding to throw a hissy fit, so we did it there instead. And Mark and I argue gloriously about the merits of, or lack thereof, for that particular movie. So in the interest of completion, that's for that one.
Very intense conversation over editing.
We did, and I still believe I was right. You can, if you want to keep it on in the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, we do have a Facebook page, so just search Radulich and Broadcasting. I'm pretty sure they're the only one, and that will provide again updates for what's coming up on the network. All right, that's going to wrap us up here. So for Mark Radulich, I'm Robert Winfree. I'll see you in a few weeks, and until then, be well, be safe, and behave, and I'm apologizing in advance for this outro music.
No. get low when the whistle go.